good to have all of you here. First, could we have a congratulations to Supriya? She's the UN Champion of the Earth. I think it's a big honor and a recognition for all the wonderful work that she's been doing. And I can't tell you, we've been trying to get Supriya to one of our events for the longest time, but she's busier with mangroves and elephants and grasslands as she should be. And thank you so much, sir, for being here. I think the Tata Group is one of the few that actually walk the talk on sustainability. So thanks so much. Supriya, I'd like to start with you right away and ask about really the change that you've seen in the kind of recognition that has been for community-led initiatives. You know, earlier the understanding was that all the learning and the wisdom lies in elite institutions. But we are slowly realizing that it's the people who are out there in the margin lands who have the wisdom. We just don't know how to tap it.
Yes, absolutely. And first of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, Kaveree, talking to you.
I thought the applause wasn't strong enough. Could we have another round of applause for her award? It's really a huge achievement.
Thank you so much, and such a pleasure talking to you. Coming back to your question, just looking at the entire, the blueprint of the biodiversity and the climate that we have, definitely, you know, if you think that we can only do it through policy and not working with the local communities, not involving them, I think we would be making the biggest mistake. Because the kind of energy, the kind of knowledge, and the kind of experience that the local communities bring to the biodiversity and to the climate change is absolutely incredible. So because we have also students here, I just wanted to kind of give some examples so that they are able to relate.
Yes.
They are able to relate. So I wanted to give this example. So right now as we are talking, you know that a lot of things are happening in the world. You also, so apart from, you know, the headlines that are coming, there are also many things that I think all of us are aware, where the migratory birds are kind of traveling. You have the turtles coming on our oceans and nesting. You also have the Nilgiri Tahr, you know, climbing on the cliff. So I'll just give you an example of how communities can actually help in this entire process of biodiversity and climate change. And it was actually in Nilgiris, when we were working on the Nilgiri Tahr project, one of the local tribal, you know, woman who was from a particularly local village told me that if you are able to plant these kind of 5 or 6 grasses, she brought it out. And she said, look, these are the, you know, the vegetation on which the tar survives. And if you are thinking of promoting, removing the invasive species and replanting these grasses, I have seen that these important vegetative things or the grasses, if you plant, you will get back Nilgiri Tahr. And you know, my team, the research team, was exactly able to find out what that local community people were telling us. This was exactly the kind of grass that Nilgiri Tahr, the mountain goat, eats and survives. Similarly, in mangroves, communities gave the idea of the fishbone structure. If some of you would know, it's a kind of a tidal, you know, structure. It's something, what should I say? It's a miracle of nature. Because the way the fishbone structures are made for mangroves, it ensures that the tidal waters come, they flush the, you know, the roots of the mangroves, an exact quantity of fresh water and the brackish water comes to make the mangroves survive. So it was based on their feedback, inputs, that the Tamil Nadu Forest Department has been creating these fishbone structures and hugely successful. So this is something that I wanted to say. I think their role is not marginal. Their role is not superficial.
Marginal, but they're actually integral.
Integral.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I wanted you to also encourage young people to be part of these discoveries. You know, we talk about education and learning, But for young people to get involved in such projects, to have, perhaps you have internships or, things that can encourage universities and young people to become part of it. Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing?
So I'll highlight 4 things that they may relate to.
Please do.
Tamil Nadu government is the only one where our Chief Minister has brought a fellowship program.
Right.
It's called as the CM Green Fellowship Program. This is, it's a beautiful,
most unusual.
It's a beautiful initiative. It's a 2-year fellowship where we take one fellow for particular one districts. We have 38 districts. And then there are 2-3 people who man it at the state level. So we had 40 people about 2.5 years back who came for the fellowship. Government pays a stipend for them. And then 2 years, they work not in the rooms or not in the secretariat. They work with the local district collectors. They work on 4 missions on greening, on climate change. And after 2 years, they come out with kind of a determination, the orientation, which is incredible. So we completed the first phase, the first round of the 40 fellows. And now we are currently having 40 new people who have just joined in the month of July, and they are currently undergoing the fellowship program. Second initiative I wanted to talk about was setting up something called as the, again, a very unique thing which could be replicated. It should be done.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that biodiversity becomes an integral part of the schools? Because what you learn from the chapters, you remember for few years. But what you actually learn on the ground, you remember for your life. So we have set up something called as the Biodiversity Incubation Centers. We have set up 8 Biodiversity Incubation Centers 2 years back. This year, we are setting up 6 Biodiversity Incubation Centers. So what are these incubation centers? They are located inside schools, and they talk about a particular species which is endemic or popular in that area. So if you take Sriviluputtur in Tamil Nadu, it is the grizzled giant squirrel, which the children study about, research about, and it's a physical center where they have quiz competitions, they have discussions. I can go on. So it's about, snakes. It's also about, lion-tailed macaque, like that. So these are the centers that we have. Third initiative, this year we have also gone a little further. We are training about 1,000 teachers from different government schools on connection, the nexus between biodiversity and climate change, and about 20,000 students on important aspects of the biodiversity, taking them to the field, involving them as a part of our surveys. For example, when we do the census for elephants, students are an integral part of our project, and also the bird census that we do. So these are some of these things I thought I would highlight here.
Very exciting. Mr. Kuti, isn't it something that the Tata should be associated with, or are you already? Because you're associated with a lot of what you call nature-based solutions.
So it's really an honor to share the stage with
Absolutely.
a legend, I must say. Supriya ma'am has been a great source of inspiration for all of us, both inside the group and of course outside. Her tweets, especially with reference to elephants, keeps all of us engaged on that topic. But let me build on this conversation about what happened in Tata Group and how the chairman really looked at this whole question of sustainability a few years ago. So this was about in the aftermath of COVID, the chairman was actually trying to understand what should be the future for the group. And in the context of many things which are changing in the world, he defined an initiative called Alingana. Alingana is to embrace what? Embrace Mother Earth, embrace everything that you probably thought was alien to you. And then he defined 3 principles. One was related to net zero, the second was related to circular economies, and the third was what Supriya ma'am was talking about. It was about nature and biodiversity. So he called three or five of our biggest group companies, of which Tata Motors was one, whom I represent. And we started trying to understand what is our carbon footprint. Today, carbon footprint, 5 years later, we know that very well. And when we started looking at our products, our operations, our supply chains, our channel partners, we recognized that we actually burn a lot of carbon. And inside the Tata Group, Tata Motors is one of the biggest footprints of carbon. We also looked at circular economy and we said, what does it mean? It also meant that we had to look at our water footprint. We looked at our renewable energy footprint. We looked at our waste footprint. And we started the journey in that area. Then we looked at nature and biodiversity. And I'll dwell a little bit more on this topic of nature and biodiversity, especially since we've been listening to what ma'am had to say. And I must tell you that as a group of engineers that Tata Motors is, nature and biodiversity is not something that comes to us very naturally. So what do you do when you don't know? You stop. You try to listen. You try to engage. And then we had several biodiversity experts coming from all over India to Tata Motors. We had numerous conferences, and I must have met not less than 200 to 300 biodiversity specialists, both from India and abroad. And we crafted 3 specific areas of work. One was related to the work that we would do inside our plant. So we got 10 plants spread all over India, several thousand hectares of land. And we wanted to ask a question, how are we dealing with the land in which you are directly connected? So some of you may not know of this concept of other effective conservation measures and area-based conservation measures. And we said, we really look at our lands and try to make it OECM ready. I'll deal with that topic in a couple of minutes. Then we said, okay, our biodiversity footprint is not inside our plant, it's with our supply chain. So for every vehicle that we make, and for all the vehicles that we make across our plants, so we have 10 plants, we have nearly almost 1,000 suppliers spread all over the world directly. And then they have their suppliers and they have their suppliers. And if you look at the entire tiers of suppliers, our supply chain extended all over the world and we would have probably 100,000 suppliers directly and indirectly. And we said, the best way to start is, to really make a difference by, of course, being a lighthouse in what we do, but also engage with suppliers and ask them to engage with us. We also said we needed a framework for this and therefore we committed as a first corporate in India to science-based target network. And mind you, the difference between the way the science-based targets look at nature and biodiversity is that all of us look at nature and biodiversity directly, that you're looking at animals, you're looking at plants, you're looking at birds. But the science-based targets approach looks at, it's like looking at the canvas on which this nature and biodiversity is built. So we started mapping the entire work that we do, and we came to the conclusion that across the suppliers, if you are able to hotspot where there is a maximum amount of water being used, or whatever water is actually getting polluted, or soil is getting polluted, or if there are invasives in these areas, then we can actually start making a difference. And I'm very happy to report to you that we have been able to do this across the supply chain, and we have hotspotted what we wanted.
Great.
In addition to that, we said, we took a more important area is to pick up some flagship projects. And then we picked up 2 specific landscapes. So one is in the northeast, in the east of India where our plant is. Jamshedpur is a tri-junction of Bihar, which is very close to Jamshedpur, which is in Jharkhand, and Bengal, which is and Orissa actually, which is a tri-junction of where the elephant habitat of the east is. And we also said we'll work with Wayanad, Bandipur, and some of these areas, and Tamil Nadu, with the elephant population. And we started working with these communities in that area, along with the forest departments, especially in Wayanad and in Jamshedpur. And we started doing a lot of work for elephant and human-elephant conflict resolution in these geographies. Right. Then we do a lot of work in the Central Asian
Elephants
flyway.
has actually given me a perfect segue into Supriya's work.
Please.
So Supriya, I wanted to ask you that, you're someone who has served in the Ministry of I&B, you've headed Doordarshan. These are very rarefied, bureaucratic environments. And there you are immediately then, talking to elephants and, planting mangroves. I mean, for you, how was that unlearning or relearning? How did you reorient your own mind to make this a priority? It's not something that all bureaucrats generally tend to favor, right? I think power is seen as something that is much more associated with Delhi and, Shastri Bhavan, etc., all the bhavans that we know. So how did you step away from that?
I think the journey started long
By
time
the way, I
back.
like your earrings. That's what, a peacock or? What you're wearing, the earrings?
Oh yeah, it's a peacock.
Uh-huh. I noticed that she's always wearing something that is related to plants or animals. So she really does completely. I saw some of your videos as well, and it's very interesting. So you're completely dedicated to nature.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think the journey started long time back. The orientation, I must admit that, my tenure at Nilgiri's, where, you were able to see the nature in its full glory and splendor, it gave you that kind of an idea and also a bit of a shock when you saw how plastic was invading those beautiful blue mountains and the water bodies and the forest.
And that was a very successful campaign, right?
Yes,
the
exactly.
No plastic campaign there.
Yeah, so it started, say, 23, 24 years back, the plastic ban, which everybody's talking about it now. But then I think it started from there. But I mean, what actually happens is the realization that if you really want to be a very powerful economy, or if you really want to be a very powerful country, you really want to be a 1 trillion economy state, the fundamental has to be on biodiversity and climate change. Look, we are a climate resilient state. It's good to say that. But the fact is that out of 38 districts, 14 districts are coastal districts. Whatever progress you make, if one disaster or one big cyclone
like happened with the tsunami,
it can just wipe it. And I was a special officer when I worked in tsunami hit areas in Nagapattinam.
Worked very closely there.
It haunts you. Even till today, it haunts you. So I think if you get a basic understanding that the fundamental of any growth, any development, any work you do has to be rooted in sustainability, has to be rooted in, development which is based on nature. If you are thinking that you can exploit nature and then grow, I think everybody in this room knows that it's a lie. It's false. But if you say that, okay, nature as infrastructure or nature as my partner, as my ally, then I think we have won the battle. I think this is where I'd like to start.
Yeah. And also I think the tea brand that you've brought out, that again is like that Araku coffee phenomenon. You have a group of indigenous people, as they're called, growing world-class tea for the market out there. That's again a wonderful connect from the tribal and farmer to the world out there. Talk a little about that as well.
So actually, if you look at Kaveree, basically that part also is nothing, different from the work that all of us do in our daily life. Basically, how do you make sure that again, community, sustainability, so, the kind of work that I did earlier was also basically rooted in how do you make sure that small growers, farmers, they are able to get the maximum of the the produce that they are making. How do you do the value addition to it? Because look, all of us, in this room, we know that whatever comes from the farming community to our table, there are so many things, so many steps that producers don't get their due. So I think again, if the world is moving towards sustainability, which is a good thing, and since students are here, it is something I'd like to say, as Jane Goodall always said, there is hope. And that is actually the truth today. that if we are able to contribute to any work that we do, whether it is the sustainability of the farming community or the mangrove growing community or communities living in coastal areas, it is one fundamental truth is that how do you empower them so that they become a partner in the work that we do.
Right. And this tea is available globally?
It's on the, it's
Yeah.
there on
Oh,
online.
Okay, what's it called?
IncoServe.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
wonderful. We are going to buy that now. I want to bring you in, Mr. Kuti, because, one hears so much about conscious capitalism now. The Tatas have been doing it for 100 years. They knew about conscious capitalism before the whole world did. But as a chief sustainability officer, you often have a checklist that you have to sort of check. And do you sometimes feel that are you able to do that properly? Do you need some more support? Do you need more policy initiatives? For instance, CAMPA, we know about the Compensatory Afforestation Act. That isn't always followed through by corporates, but as a policy, it does exist. So what are the things that you still feel you need from the government or the ecosystem to make sustainability something that is that should be a first choice for all corporates?
So, the Tata Group has been known for whatever
Yes.
you just referenced. And I must dial back a little bit. I have been a representative from the group who attends our regular COPs.
Right.
COPs are the Conference of Parties.
Yeah.
And we normally attend it on behalf of the group and the company, and we're trying to understand what's happening out there. I'm very happy to report something very interesting, that India has taken pole position there. And despite the climate denial, if I may say, of some countries, or the difficulty in accepting climate as a fundamental problem, I must say there are some countries, especially the global south, has really picked up great steam there, and India is seen as a pole bearer there. In coming closer home, the Tata Group has recognized that as a group, we hold tremendous responsibility in guiding that narrative. And in close association with several governments, both center and state, we have been leading this agenda on many streams. I'm very happy to also tell you that India is committed to 500 gigawatts of renewable energy, electricity. We are well on our targets to meet it. You named the targets and you named the journey on sustainability. I'm very happy to say both the group and not just Tata Group, many big groups in the country have really decided to not only support the government also, but lead in their own specific areas. I must tell you, as a Chief Sustainability Officer, when I took over this conversation, sustainability was still seen as a touchy-feely subject, good to do, nice to have.
Something that HR should be associated
something
with.
Karlo Baba. It was confused with CSR.
Yeah.
But now I want to tell this august audience that sustainability has become a very nuanced scientific conversation in
And
these
it's a
5
great
years.
profession to try to enter
I'll
as well.
just let you know one thing, that what was probably seen as touchy, beautiful pictures, some photo ops, is now deep science and embedded science into every conversation, whether it is carbon, whether it is circular economy with nature and biodiversity. And nature and biodiversity also has now become very technical. How do you measure biodiversity? What are the metrics of the biodiversity? How do you measure this? Now, when you convert a good to feel, a good to have concept to a science-based, target-driven set of metrics and connect it to the goal sheets and compensation of senior executives, then you begin to see change happening. And you also recognize that you can't do much of this alone. You need to collaborate amongst your peers. You need to collaborate with the government. You have to also collaborate with the academics and universities. Learn what you don't know, provide what you know, and create a holistic ecosystem. And this is where the Tata Group and the company has recognized that as a leader in the industrial space or as in the corporate space, we hold that leadership in trust and responsibility. And when we look around, there is a lot of hope. And India has got something really great to offer.
Right.
And our group also has.
Absolutely. So, Priya, one last thing. What is the one thing that you remember that someone told you out there in the field that stuck with you and you said, my God, this is wisdom that I should have known?
So it is, I've said it earlier also, it was in Pichavaram, one old lady came to me and she said, look, there are so many family members of mine who got washed away, died when tsunami hit our village, and they were there in other villages also which got hit. And she says that now, whatever time I have on this earth, the only job I have is to protect my village. And it appears to me as if I have taken birth only to protect my village by planting these mangroves. And என்னால என்ன பண்ண முடியும் நான் கண்டிப்பா பண்றேன். In Tamil she said that இந்த அலையாத்தி காடுகள் வந்து protect பண்றது தான் என்னோட வேலை. Basically that I will protect these mangroves. That was something which has stuck with me. All we can do is to just support what the local communities are telling us, learn from them. This is what I wanted to say. But I forgot to mention one important thing because I don't want to miss this as these students are here.
Yeah, I know. The fourth thing.
The fourth thing I forgot to mention is that we have a beautiful scheme called the Green School Scheme. Oh. It's not that something that you just kind of, just have a school and then plant some trees alone. Yes, you do plant trees. But it is a very well-designed scheme, 300 schools, where the schools are moving towards 3-4 things. A, can they have, in order to protect ourselves from the rising heat in a warming world, can we have the cool roof? So many of the schools are now having a solar reflective paint, which we have started. Plus, a recent study, we have also installed the solar roof, and a recent study by the Indian Institute of Human Settlement, Bangalore, they did an audit of our schools, and they have said that about 50% of the current consumption of these schools has been brought down by installing solar panels on the school roof. And therefore, the money which they are saving, they can actually plow back into something more, useful for the student community. And they are also being involved in all these kind of biodiversity surveys and all that. So I just want to, I know the time is up, so I wanted to tell you, it's a beautiful opportunity for the student community to be in this world today. Don't lose the hope, because your action matters. Every action matters.
Wonderful. And I think you would say the same, Mr. Kuti, as a profession also, as a career also, as a vocation, as a dream. It's something that students should aim for, to protect what is still there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the responsibility is, of course, the teachers, the students, the corporates, all of us coming together. But it's amazing to be at this point of time where you can contribute in a holistic way.
It's a great opportunity.
You lose this decade, or you lose these 25 years, you lose a lot for, for everybody.
Yeah.
So if you are able to pick it up and come together and collaborate and partnership. So it's normally said that, in today's world, partnership is the new leadership.
Yeah.
And unless we
partner,
you're not going to make progress.
You're going to get a lot of applications when you leave.
Thank you.
And you too. Thank you so much, both of you. It was a real honor and privilege to see people who are doing something for the earth and something for the future. Thank you.